Well, this is different to our studio.
Very nerve-wracking to do a live one.
You're used to being on a horse, but now you're in the hot seat.
It was the biggest thrill, certainly the biggest equestrian thrill of my life. I got to the end and I couldn't speak because I was a bit full up. You know, it was
Amazing.
just the most wonderful experience.
Am I right in thinking you became a sex symbol and you're
Am I right in thinking you became a sex symbol?
You have a waxwork at Madam Tussauds and you're the most kissed man.
Well, it's right next to a branch of Specsavers and they couldn't...
Here at the Royal Windsor Horse Show, and it's my absolute pleasure to invite Pippa Funnell and Tristan Phipps to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, God, good morning. Well,
This is different to our studio.
very different, I have to say. For me, this is going to be a new first time. Very nerve-wracking to do a live one.
You're used to being on a horse, but now you're in the hot seat. I think the hot seat suits you.
I think I prefer.
You've got a little James Bond kind of twisty motion going here as well. It's quite good. We have more than 4 people in the audience. That was initially our concern. So thank you all for coming down, and thank you so much for supporting Talk Horse. It's been an incredible journey. I get a lot of people ask, what am I doing here? So we get a lot of questions online. I'd like to think that I'm learning. I think I'm earning my stripes.
Tristan's done
step by step.
He has done very well. He's knowing nothing probably at the beginning of December. The only thing he knew about horses was falling off a polo pony. And
I knew which way to get on. The back end.
I think you know more than that now. But he actually came last week. You're really turning into an expert, because Tristan last week came to Badminton Horse Trials, and I got him walking the cross-country course. My
education of the equestrian world, I have to say, has been first class. I have met some of the most amazing eventers, jockeys, everything in the equestrian world through Pippa and Talk Horse. I managed to walk the course with you at Badminton. Those jumps are bloody huge. I had no idea how big they would be. They are enormous, so, take my hat off to you. Fair play. And I've met some legends of the game, and I've learned a lot. So this has been an education for me as much as it has been for some of you who maybe aren't as well versed in the equestrian world.
Anyway, back to Windsor.
Windsor
one of the
biggest.
Horse Show. What beautiful weather.
Absolutely stunning. This is, I think, the UK in its prime. What an amazing show. Obviously, this is a show you're very familiar with. For those who aren't maybe as well versed as you are, what are the highlights for you? What should people be looking out for the next few days? What are you excited about? What should I be learning whilst I'm here?
For those that are listening, we are literally in the King's back garden. I mean, it is quite the most beautiful backdrop. We're in the literally the gardens of Windsor Castle.
Absolutely, and we've His Royal Highness is about 200 metres away from us currently, and we've still managed to pull a crowd. So, thank you very much. It was His Royal Highness or Pippa Funnell and Talk Horse. Tough one. But before we start, there's a massive thank you has to be given to Harry Hall One Club, who have been our first sponsors, an amazing sponsor for us at Talk Horse. They've been incredibly generous. If you look on your chairs, you've got some amazing Harry Hall merch, so please feel free to, pop them on. It's a sunny day. That's safety first. But Harry Hall have been very, very special in supporting us.
Yes, thank you to Harry Hall. I mean, probably Harry Hall were the first pair of breeches, jobbers, when I was very little that I ever had. So,
and now insurance and supplements.
Exactly,
everything.
They've moved on to insurance, which obviously is a vital part of the equestrian world.
And we have a very special guest today. I have to say, I'll tell you a funny story. So, there were 2 potential people that people was going to meet. Our guest today is the legend, Alan Titchmarsh. There was an opportunity where Tom Cruise and Alan were at a show, and Pippa and I were discussing this on a podcast, and I went, oh my God, Alan Titchmarsh is my hero. What a legend. And Pippa was like, Tom Cruise is my hero. So we haven't got Tom Cruise today, but we have got an absolute national treasure, broadcaster, novelist, gardening icon, a passionate advocate for the British countryside. He has brought nature into our homes for a very, very long time. The amount of shows that Alan has been on and the amount of books he's written is absolutely fantastic. He is obviously a lover of the equestrian world. He's got a deep connection to that, which we're going to explore today. So it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege.
Wait for it. Let's talk horse with Alan Titchmarsh.
This really is an absolute pleasure for me, I have to say. I
need to get you out more.
I am a huge fan. Gardening, question well, I'm a huge fan of your shows. Love your weekend, love your garden. I'm very excited to have you on, so thank you so much.
Very nice to be with you, thank you. And you know, so you're sitting next to a legend.
I know. I've got MBEs, CBEs. I'm in a brace of some serious accolades here. I'm working on mine. If you could put in a good word with the big man next door, that would be...
Well, it'll do better if you start calling him Your Majesty rather than Your Royal Highness.
His Majesty, yeah. See, I need the extra lesson.
He has, as he used to say, gone up one.
Is that not appropriate? No. See, this is good. This is an education for me as well.
So, Alan, how... Because I am very fortunate and very honoured to have an MBE. So, what else do I have to do to promote myself to try and get a CBE?
I have no idea. I really don't know. It was an enormous shock when a letter came in November saying the Prime Minister has got this plan to ask the King if you can be a CBE. So I've tried to get my family to call me Commander, but they won't. It's very sad, really. My wife's the Commandant. I think that's why. It's a great honour, and it was my investiture came through on the 1st of April. And you think, oh, is this a sign? All Fool's Day, you know. No, it was a very special day, and I've known the King for about 40 years now, so it's very special.
Very well earned, I'd say.
I mean, I know you are a national treasure, and I've obviously...
Julian Clary says I'm a national trinket. It's probably slightly more accurate.
So where did gardening come first, or broadcasting?
Oh, gardening first, since being about 8 or 9. I just loved being out in the garden. And it was the nearest bit of countryside, you know. Ilkley, Yorkshire, Wharfdale. So Sunday walks were moors, river or woods, either side of the valley. We were just always outside, and I potted in the garden. I just love growing things. And if you sow a seed and it comes up, it's incredibly encouraging. When you take a cutting and it roots, I can do this. And I was a late developer. I'm still trying to develop, but I was a late developer, and I just loved doing it. So I became an apprentice gardener, and then I went to college, and then I went to Kew Gardens, and then I taught there for a bit, and then I went into journalism as a gardening writer, and then I went into radio and television as a gardening expert, and then somebody said, have you thought of doing anything else on telly and radio? And I said, no, and they said, well, you should. And that's where all the rest of it started. And I was a choir boy and loved music, and that's how I ended up at Classic FM. I've just been allowed to do everything I like, which is dreadful, really, but wonderful fun.
It's about seizing those opportunities, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah, it's being brave every now and again, taking risks. But, you know, if you think, oh, I don't think I'll try that, it might not happen, you end up with being, I wonder what I call a what-if life. What if I haven't really done many what-ifs, I've had a go.
I took a big risk to agreeing to do this Talk Horse podcast with
Tristan,
him.
yeah.
That was a big risk.
That is a risk.
And the risk has... paid off.
But moving away, because you just said about...
I'm blooding a stone getting a compliment out of
I'm going to start talking gardening, because it's not my specialised subject, but how come you were talking about sowing seeds and it just grows, but when I do it, it doesn't grow, but yet weeds grow, and I don't sow the seeds, and why do weeds grow so much quicker than the seeds I would try and plant for flowers?
They all want to grow. It's up to us not to get in the way. And you clearly don't get in the way of your weeds. They grow. Most of gardening is common sense. It's magical, but
I don't have any common sense.
But no, you see, you know, you're a countrywoman. You've got a feel for horses. It's just as easy to get a feel for plants, and they don't answer back like horses. They don't kick you, which makes life so much easier.
And do they? Because some people say they do have feelings. Plants. They're proving that. I think if you chat to them lovingly, they do grow a bit quicker.
If I've got one that isn't doing well, I give it a talking to.
Stern word or a gentle? Stern word.
You know, another 2 weeks you'll be on the compost heap. It works usually. Percy Thrower, who was my idol when I was a boy, the great Percy Thrower, he always used to say, if you've got a plant that's growing in your garden, it's not growing well, dig it up, put it in a wheelbarrow, run it round 3 times and plant it somewhere else, and it invariably works.
Where's my husband gone? He could do that.
Well, you've got a built-in supply of manure. You know, I'm terribly envious.
Yeah, you can start your own fertiliser business.
So tell me, because it is about Talk Horse, bringing horses into it. Why do roses love horse manure so much?
They need nutrition like we do. You know, they need nitrogen, phosphates, and potash. They also need a soil which is moisture retentive and which is springy and spongy. And well rotted horse manure, provided you haven't given your horses too many antibiotics and chemicals, is a very good soil enricher for either clay, where it forces the tiny particles apart, or for sand, where it binds the bigger particles together. So it's what they eat which is coming out. The fibre. It's great for soil, and soil which is just powdered rock, which hasn't got any organic matter in it at all, grows very little. Cacti. That's about it. So it's a marriage made in heaven, horses and gardening, really, in a constant supply.
Talking of the marriage, I mean, this is obviously Talk Horse, and you have, maybe people don't know that you have a passion for horses, and you've been involved in that world a lot. Where did that connection come from?
I'd always loved being around them, and if they went up the road, I'd go out and watch them, and I was just aware, I can hear a horse, and go out. So I've always had a great admiration and affinity for the majesty of the horse. Even tiny Shetland ponies sometimes you can gather. But I was walking past the Copper Horse Arena yesterday, and they were galloping round these absolute beautiful horses, gleaming, riders well turned out. And they were galloping round. They go through the trot and the canter, and they were really herring round this. And I was, 6 feet away. And it gives me a thrill. It gives me quite a different feeling when I'm actually the one on the horse doing that, and still muttering to. Well, I have now just. I tell myself I've given up because I haven't ridden for a couple of years. And
that's what Pippa's from.
And all I would ever do was say heels down, heels down, heels down, heels down, heels down, and galloping up the field, and taking your bum in the saddle. I loved it anyway. So I loved looking at them as a child. I still adore looking at them now. And before I was 40, I said to my wife, I want to do 2 things. I want to learn to play the piano, and I want to learn to ride.
We've got one of those there.
I know. But
we've got a few of those out there.
Yeah, I know. Well, my piano teacher emigrated after 6 months. So I stopped playing the piano. But I carried on riding. I had 30 years of really enjoying riding till I was sort of 17. And I thought, when you do fall off, it doesn't half hurt, and you take longer to mend. But I had a wonderful time. I was taught to ride by a girl near where I live in Alton, who I met last week. She doesn't look any different, 30 years on, Julie Turnbull. And she was a really great teacher. At the right pace, didn't frighten me too much, though. It's quite frightening. When I did a bit of jumping.
I'm going to frighten you.
I know you are, and you're looking forward to it, which is concerning.
The thing about you, he's so tall.
My feet are touching the ground, essentially, if I want. No,
well,
probably not one of your.
No, you graduate from a Shetland. You don't have to.
Yeah, I think we'll start on the Shetland with Pippa. I know exactly what she's going to do. I've earned it. I deserve it, I'm sure.
I think the thing is, it's like sailing. You still need to retain, even you, Pippa, even the most experienced of riders, still must retain a respect for the horse. It is not a car. You all know that. You know what it's like when you get on. It's a great thrill, but there's always that, however good a horse it is, this might be its day. I had one that hated buckets, can you believe? And if there was a bucket buried in a hedge and you were just gently rising trot down, I don't know what's that. The other one was fertiliser bags. Absolutely. They have these odd little quirks. And I think I was always aware any second now that could happen. So the moments where you are completely at ease in the saddle and relaxed are rare. Is that still the case for an experienced rider?
I think exactly what you say, because it's like driving, really. A good driver has to preempt things. So if you're driving, and I have to say I'm a fast driver, but I do preempt if I see a car coming towards a junction, you're ready just in case that car pulls out. Yeah. And that's exactly what you have to be like on a horse, that you have to preempt, particularly at the big shows, like, for instance, we've just come from Badminton last week and riding to do the dressage test at Badminton. You preempt that camera in the corner they could well spook at, so you're ready to hold their hands, to be there for the horse, to say that cameraman isn't a dragon or a shark or a crocodile, it's not going to get you, it's not going to bite you, I'm holding your hands. And you ride them in a way. And when we talk about you have to listen to your horses, and this is what I've been trying to explain to Tristan, you listen to them by the signals they give out to you, so you know and it does help enormously knowing each individual horse that you ride. And these top competitors here, and I'm sure even the guys in the pony club that have their ponies, it's really important to know and be able to read the language they're giving out to you.
But it works both ways, doesn't it? Because you're giving out signals to the horse. Your mood, your whatever, they read that as well, don't they? And if I remember when I'd been riding for, perhaps 10, 20 years, something like that, before they said, would you like to do a couple of programmes called All the Queen's Horses and then All the Queen's Men? Would you like to come and ride? I rode, first of all, with the Household Cavalry, and that really was just up and down. A horse called Waterford, and I was telling Terry Pendry, the Queen's groom, that I'd been riding this horse called Waterford. I said he wouldn't do anything I wanted him to do. He said, Waterford, he's got 5 legs, he said. And the other thing is, when they put you on a horse like that, and all the soldiers are wearing spurs, albeit, soft spurs, and you're going on it wearing boots without spurs, then, we've got a right number here, we're going to do this. You haven't got spurs, have you? I know you're rubbish, And they know when you're in charge or not. But my greatest thrill, apart from a little bit with the Household Cavalry, was riding with the King Street Royal Artillery, because the second series was called All the Queen's Men, which oddly was more horses than the first one. And they used to rehearse then when the barracks was at St John's Wood. It's now Woolwich, isn't it? They've moved. When they're at St John's Wood, they used to rehearse on the playing field alongside Wormwood Scrubs. And they said, come there and you can sit on a horse and watch them going round and doing the scissors, where they've got the 3 pairs and then a limber and then a gun carriage all being told. And
the terrifying bit where they cross over at high speed.
Exactly. And I'm sitting there on this horse with the 2 sort of commandants at the side watching it. And he said, I've watched you ride up and down a bit. He said, do you want to have a go? I said, what? He said, would you like to have a go with... I said, what, on one of them? He said, a centre pair on one of the gun carriages. Me? Yeah, I think you'll be all right. Right, okay. Fool.
That's one of those grab the opportunity moments.
I know that one of the horses I was in charge of, you sit on one and you got... little coiled whip to push the other out when you're going around the corner that way and pull it in when you're going around the corner that way. And the one I was sitting on was called Mango. And I thought, I'm going to be chutney before I get off this horse. Anyway, so we started. So there's a rider on each of the left-hand horses, and then there's an outriding sergeant on his horse here, just sort of outside you. And then you've got, 2 and me on that one, and 2 behind the wheeler, and then the limber, and then the gun carriage, and off you go. And we started off, and I thought, this is all right.
And are you just walking or trotting?
No, we're trotting at that point, and then they go into a canter, and then they go into a gallop. And I'm thinking, and I'm sorry about this, but that word we use that begins with SH and ends with T, and I'm just thinking all the way and trying to look calm.
I'm in now, I can't
around.
get out.
And then I lost my stirrups. Oh. And I think it's okay, just get your clenched with your whole thing. We did this whole thing, and we did the scissors, and we went round and round, we came back, and we did the whole kit and caboodle. And I didn't come off, and we ground to a halt, and my heart must have been coming out here somewhere. We ground to a halt, and then the outriding sergeant turned to Bombardier Floyd, I'll never forget her name, who was on the front horse, and they looked at one another, and they went... And I said, was I that bad? And he said, no, we don't normally go that fast. I felt vindicated, but the best thing of all was we then rode on the roads from Wormwood Scrubs right the way up to St John's Wood at a rising trot. The whole 6 outfits, traffic stopped, jingling harness, sound of the wheels on the road. It was the biggest thrill, certainly the biggest equestrian thrill in my life. I got to the end and I couldn't speak because I was a bit full up. It was just the most wonderful experience. And then I had 3 months at the osteopath. It's true.
I must say, when you've done the most incredible job presenting all the Queen's horses, all the Queen's men, the pageants.
The pageant's wonderful.
And the 90th birthday of the Queen and the platinum. You did
Platinum Jubilee. Yeah.
And I must admit, when you talk about the King's Troop and when I've been really fortunate that I've watched a lot of those pageants with you presenting, and full credit to you. But every time I've watched it, it brings goosebumps, and the pride you feel and the history. And I've been lucky enough that I've looked around the barracks and been seen the inside of it, and it just the history behind it all and the pride and I know you obviously have seen all that, and you've been greatly involved in all of these pageants. And Tell us a little bit more about
it's
those
amazing, and
experiences.
particularly the King's Troop, like you, whenever you see them come on, and because I was a tiny little part of it for a tiny length of time, but they are so friendly and so welcoming. You know, they could so easily have said, "Oh, push off, you know nothing. You're a rubbish horseman. You know, you came to it late. You're not that good." And I knew and know my own limitations at it. And I think it's probably worked as well that I've stopped now. You get to a certain age, and you know if you break anything now, it's going to be months. But it's been lovely, and the King's Troop was a lovely moment at which to park, if you like, my riding career. But coming here every year, as I've been doing for years now, I just love it. I know so many people, they know me. It's a wonderful camaraderie between the riders, between the army, all the services who ride here. There's a great feeling, and also horsemen and women are country people. My whole life has been dedicated to showing the enjoyment and pleasure of a responsibility to look after the countryside.
Absolutely.
And you do. You know, you are an integral part, an important part of countryside management. There isn't a square inch of the British Isles that isn't managed in some way. It doesn't look pretty just because it happens to be that way, because the climate's good. You know, there's a lovely story about the man who was in his garden and the vicar walked past. And he looked over the fence of this garden, and there's this lovely striped lawn and marrows and carrots and runner beans and sweet peas and roses all growing beautifully. And the vicar said, "Isn't it wonderful what God can do in a garden?" And the man said, "Yes, but you should have seen what it was like when he had it to himself." And it's the same with us. We have a responsibility, a duty of care to that landscape out there.
Absolutely.
And, you know, those of you in the equestrian world share that responsibility and revel in it. And also, like gardening, it's the sharp end of conservation, of keeping in touch with the planet. Global warming and climate change seem very frightening, and for younger people, they seem powerless to do anything about it. But you here are doing something about it. You are a part of the people who are custodians of the landscape. We're active in it, and that's important and should be recognised.
Absolutely. And aside from the kind of conservation element, you speak a lot about how, you know, gardening and that connection with the British countryside and the natural world is an amazing way to kind of, you know, connect with yourself and, you know, for mental health and that sort of thing.
The outdoors, the countryside, the equestrian world and the gardening world, they keep us in touch with reality. It's a real world. And because we're fed news every hour on the hour, 24/7, and it's all tragedy, it's all things that have gone wrong, retaining a sense of proportion, a sense of perspective about life is fiendishly difficult, particularly for younger people. And being on a horse or in a garden reminds you that this is the greater reality. We can't take responsibility. We're not equipped, evolution-wise, to take responsibility for all the tragedies of the world. Our brains are not equipped to, but we keep overloading them with it. And therefore, to go out, to ride a horse, to look after a horse, to tend a garden, but that's the greater reality of life, rather than just taking on board worry and feeling negative. And, you know, keep doing it, keep riding, keep encouraging others to ride, because by being connected to the earth, you know how it works. And even if you can't grow things in the garden, Pippa, at least your weeds are doing well.
You've got healthy weeds.
I actually am waiting for... Because does ground force still happen?
Oh, Lord, no, ground force stopped
Can you
about
bring
20
it
odd
back
years
in?
ago.
Please, can you bring it back in? And I
Well,
really
we got
want...
Love Your Garden, which is paused at the moment. I've stopped that for a while.
Love Your
But-
Weekend.
Love Your
We've-
Weekend still going, yeah.
Love Your Weekend.
There was one of the top guys in the showing world, Roger Stack, who used to... I mean, he won here. I mean, a lot of the showing people know exactly. And he was almost like a father to my husband and myself. He lived locally. And I had these 2 raised beds put in one corner of the garden, and he said, "Why on earth have you done that?" And I said, "Well, I want to grow vegetables." And I grew, the first year I grew vegetables, but he said when I put them in, he said, "That you're just putting up 2 more extra weed beds." I said, "I won't, I'm going to grow vegetables." And the first year was great. The second year, just a few strawberries popped up because they were sort of lasted from the year before, and now
You do have to sow seeds every year.
I know, I do.
You can't sow a row of radish this year and expect them to come up again next year.
But it's the same as you working with horses, isn't it? It doesn't happen overnight, and that's something that maybe the two worlds can connect on. It's about that passion, the dedication.
It's feel, Pippa. You develop an instinct for horsemanship. You just do, don't you? You more than I did. It's the same with gardening. It is really common sense. It's seeing when they grow well and why they've grown well and just working it out. As I say, they want to grow, just don't get in the way. They need air, they need light, they need a suitable temperature, and they need water. That is all they need. But you've got to give them to them in the right... Both. Both. But you've got to give them in the right quantities,
I think I might have to stop doing this talk course because then I'd have a bit more time.
For your garden.
In my garden.
I'd be devastated if you left me here solo. I'll be standing here by myself.
No, we've got it. I'll keep working until you've got your pony club C test or
I've
D test.
got some work to do on that one. I can help you with the garden, though. I am a keen gardener.
Are you a successful gardener? Are you good at it?
I'd say semi-successful. I've been inspired again
but
now. I
love
thought
it. You were
really
in London. You've only got a little tub on the window, haven't you?
I'm going to come plant a vegetable patch at your place. No, I think it's amazing.
Did you witness that, everyone?
I'll tell you what. I'll plant you a vegetable patch if you give me some riding lessons. That's a fair trade.
That's a deal.
I'm so glad I came. I feel I've been a catalyst.
Yeah. The two worlds collide. Absolutely.
Alan, you're more than welcome to come and dig my garden.
I'll add you to the list. It's quite long. Yeah.
Amazing.
Love your horse but not the high costs? Say hello to the Harry Hall One Club. You'll get public liability and personal accident insurance included in your membership from just £57.24 per year, making horse ownership more affordable.
And did you know they even offer horse box and travel insurance? How handy is that?
Friendly, fuss-free and full of shopping perks, join the club that's got your back in and out of the saddle.
Harry Hall One Club, making horse ownership more affordable.
Well, let's talk about the Royal Windsor Horse Show for a minute.
Yes.
Because obviously you've been coming here for years and years, and got a very strong connection with the show. What are the main highlights for you here? Do you have any special memories whilst being here? Or?
It's rather like the Chelsea Flower Show of the horse world, I think, really. It's the best. But in the same way as Chelsea is, it's about people as much as about horses. Chelsea Flower Show for me, which starts on Monday, well, the King's coming on Monday, that's press day, is as much about people as it is about horses. It is about flowers, and this is the same here. And my wife always says it's a chance for you to go and meet your muckers, my friends that I've known for years and years and years. I mean, I left Kew Gardens, having been a student there for my diploma, and then taught there for 2 years. But I left over 50 years ago now. It's all numbers. You don't feel that old. You can't believe it's that long. And the secret is friendships, being curious and inquiring in your mind, loving what you do, and enjoying meeting people. And if you're interested in people, then shows like this are just enormously pleasurable, especially if there are people there that you've been seeing for a good few years. You're in it. You're tighter into the equestrian world than I am. It's lovely to see you all here in your various uniforms, particularly the Pony Club. And the combination of Pony Club Mountain Games and then King's Troop and then the Omanis or the Azerbaijanis. Well, the Azerbaijanis who do all that cavorting and they with flay and all that. I've done all those moves, but never intentionally.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That's as far as
And actually, that's the wonderful thing with equestrian, because it brings in so many different nations. As you say, there are a lot have done their displays.
But you're also welcoming, because I felt, particularly when I started, what do you know about horses? Nobody ever did. You were welcomed into the fold, and it's the same with gardening. Gardeners are great sharers. If you say, I just can't grow whatever it is, I'll tell you what I do. They always say in gardening, give it away. If you've got 3 plants of something and it's quite rare, give one away, because when yours dies, they might still have it. And in the horse and in the riding world, people want you to do well, because if you love doing something, you're passionate about it, you have to share it.
I guess that's what's so beautiful about these shows as well, the amount of shows that you've brought me into as well, and the Chelsea Flower Show. It's all about community. It's all about the passion, dedication people have for the rest of the year, but then opportunities like this, everyone comes together.
I've got no time for exclusivity, elitism.
Yeah.
No.
Elitism in terms of skill, yes, be the best, but share it. Not this, it's not for you. No.
But I think that's what we've discussed a lot too, is the equestrian world is one very close-knit family, and I think with horses, because of the unpredictability of them, you can never... They keep you humble because you can't get big-headed, because as soon as you do well and think you're flying, then you're eating mud the next minute. And I think everyone shares the successes and helps you when you have those low moments.
And particularly with a horse, you're not guaranteed continuing success, are you? One broken leg, thank you, good night. I mean, it's terribly knife edge, really, for that. But what I do love particularly is the relationship between horse and rider, when that relationship has been crafted over years. And I find that terribly, terribly moving. You'll all know, even in Pony Club, you'll have a favourite horse, that you love. And that amazing bond that you develop. And some days, it just doesn't want to go into third gear. And it's very, very annoying. But it happened, but we've had dogs as well, and I love dogs. But there's something particular about the relationship between rider and horse.
I found myself, I did an interview for the television at Badminton last week, and we were talking on Cross Country Day. And during this interview, I'm quite hard and tough, but I found myself getting quite emotional because I was explaining how I just will miss the feeling of those big events, of not the feeling of actually achieving going around one of the biggest courses in the world, but what I miss is that feeling of gratitude to your horse. But it was, and I said it wasn't about the actual event itself, it's about the whole journey. And that journey for me with my horses has been from when they're like 3-year-olds. And so you get so close, so attached to them. And it's hard to put it into words, but when people do show their emotions, I think it's so much about the journey that we've done as we say the whole time, as partners.
I remember interviewing many years ago Lucinda Green, and she lives at Appleshaw, down in Hampshire. And we were going around. It was a lovely interview. It was a program a series I did called More Than Meets the Eye. And it was called The Glory of the Garden, lies in More Than Meets the Eye, and she was one of the interviewees. And it was with her. And then we went along past a wall, and there were little tiny gravestones. And I said, "Oh, I recognise it. It's your horses." And I said, "But they're not." She said, "No, we bury their hearts here." And I thought that was so touching. Got me going now. Yeah.
I have to say, just from a kind of an outsider to the equestrian world, I've never met such a humble group of individuals as some of your peers and you guys in the equestrian world. I've had the privilege of meeting and interviewing some of the most highly decorated, eventers, jockeys, and it's almost like trying to get the achievements out of your peers is tough, because it always comes back to you do it for the horse. You've achieved so much in your career, you have as well, and
But
it always comes
Tristan,
back.
do you think they realise when they go out there into that arena what heroes and heroines they are to us, the mere day-to-day rider? And we see you go out there, and you are the kings and queens of that arena.
Absolutely.
And people with a good seat on a beautiful horse. Oh my goodness!
You got a good seat, Tristan, I'm sure.
It's the first time I've heard that one.
But it's true, isn't it? Do you find that when they go out there, you're in awe of the way in which you and the horse work together? It is godlike almost.
The amount of people who've come up to you and you're quite humble in admitting this as well, but having played your games, read your books, read your Pippa's Ponytails, you are the inspiration for this next generation of riders, in the same way that you had your heroes. I had the pleasure of being with Tina Cook and Piggy and Pippa at Badminton, and the amount of people who were just blown away by your success is amazing, and you both have inspired people to...
Well, if you remember what Roger Federer said, it's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice.
Absolutely.
Hear,
hear.
It's a great compliment to you.
No, I think, from my point of view, like we've discussed, and I mustn't go on about it again, but like you, what you have to offer from the experience you've gained over many years is huge inspiration to a lot of people. And I'm inspired, and I love learning. I love what this podcast is about. I love hearing people's stories, and I feel like we discussed before, my role absolutely going forward is to try and help share the experiences I've had, and absolutely at the top of all the conversations, as we say, has to be the horses. And we we mustn't take away also the privilege that we have to work with them and the fun we have. But actually, you know, in this day and age with social licensing and everything else, I think it's really important that treat your horse right. I think they really love it as well. The horses genuinely love it when they're dealt with properly. I know when you've worked with them for all those years, you know when they're happy, and to me they are absolutely happy in their work and in their job, and as we've discussed, you can't do it by force, but I recognise a content horse, and to me that's the most important thing.
Patience and dedication. How about we open it up to both of you? You know, obviously an amazing broadcasting career, an amazing equestrian career. You know, a lot of people here, I'm sure, would love a takeaway. You know, what advice would you give to people who are, you know, aspiring gardeners, broadcasters, journalists, writers? You know, any advice or wisdom you can impart to our amazing crowd here?
Gosh, I was interviewing Dirk Bogarde once. There's a name drop. Sorry about that. I actually did only interview Dirk Bogarde once, but when I was interviewing Dirk Bogarde, and I'd wanted to interview him for years and years and years, and he'd got away, hadn't tried to get away, but it never happened, and then it happened, and I thought, please don't disappoint me. You know, be a nice person. And he was charming. We got on like a house on fire. I got various postcards that came after us, because he was a keen gardener, I think, really. And we were talking about careers, life, and he said the important thing, because he said so many people go through life with a goal. I'm going there. And he said it's like a door at the end of a corridor, and they know that that's where they want to go. And they're quite single-minded about it. That's what I'm aiming for. He said, and there are lots of side doors in this corridor, and they open, and people say, come in. No, I'm going there. You know, that's where I'm going. He said, and they never realised, they get to the door at the end, and it's bolted, and they can't get through it. And they never realised that the side doors actually led to the same place, but by a different route. And I think it's being brave, taking things that come left of field, that you didn't expect, but above all, rely on your gut. Rely on your gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, as distinct from, I don't know whether I can do this, but if you think, do you know, there's just something not quite right, don't do it. But if you're not sure and you think, I might go for it, because the only errors that you regret in life are the errors of omission, not commission, the ones you didn't do, and then you end up living your life on what if. And that's no way to live a life.
Absolutely.
My other thing was, my kids said the best advice I always gave them was, did I give you some good advice? Yes, go where you're wanted. Don't go where you're not wanted or you can't do any good. Go where you're wanted, where you can make a difference. So.
I think that's a really, really good bit of advice. And for me, I've actually followed that same advice. And I think if there are any youngsters here, any people here with big dreams, it's important to have those big dreams. But I know even a year ago, was I going to be sat here interviewing Alan Titchmarsh? No, I wasn't. I never. Life
can only get better now, Pippa, honestly. We must get her out more. I mean, you know, very kind of you.
But it's the same, and the same with books. I mean, I failed pretty much every O-level at school, and if my English teachers knew that I'd done a series of children's books, they would be turning in their graves. And they were things I could easily have said no, because I've had a busy life. But
don't give
I've
in
loved
too
it.
quickly. That's the other
thing.
On that teaching line, I was back in Ilkley a few years ago, not that long ago now, and I was walking across the car park, and my French teacher at school came walking across, Madam Hawksworth. Good French name, isn't it? and I thought, and I hadn't seen her for about 40, 50 years. She's walking, I said, crumbs, it's Madam Hawksworth walking towards me, the French teacher.
Check your tie.
And she got within about 6 feet of me, and she stopped. Titchmarsh, she said. Yes, Madam Hawksworth. Well, she said, we never thought you'd amount to much. And carried on walking. And that was it. So don't give up. If you know what you want to do, don't let anybody put you off it. And don't like a kind of discouragement that you get from some people saying, shut up, pipe down. Don't. Keep piping up.
I love it.
Great advice. I just have to bring up this little story I heard about you, Alan, that I think I should mention, that it's to do with ground force, that I heard, and you can tell me that through ground force you became... Am I right in thinking you became a sex symbol? And you're
am I right in thinking you became a sex symbol?
You have a waxwork at a wax at Madam Tussauds, and you're the most kissed man at Madam Tussauds.
That is an achievement.
Well, it's right next to a branch of Specsavers, and they couldn't work out who it was. I think I'm more of a sex thimble than the sex symbol. Being of relatively restricted height compared with Tristan.
Things come in small packages.
I think those days are long gone now. I think now I'm probably harmless.
You can add that to the accolades. Titchmarsh, sex symbol. You're quite good at getting these cheeky anecdotes out.
Business. No, as I said, Julian Clary told me I was a national trinket. I thought that'll do.
Nonsense. A national treasure. Absolutely. I stand by that. I think this is the first we've done on the Talk Horse podcast show, but I would love to open up to the audience here. I think it would be lovely to have some questions for the legends that are Pippa Funnell and Alan Titchmarsh. So if anyone has any amazing questions up, absolutely.
Oh, how lovely. Hi, thank you so much for such a wonderful, inspiring, funny talk. My name is Ruth. I have a company called White Griffin, and I'm really proud that for the last 3 years we've been working with British Equestrian on getting the equestrian sport to love and do more for nature and conservation. And actually at Royal Windsor we've launched Equestrians for Nature. As 3 phenomenal advocates for conservation, nature and the natural environment, I'd love to know what you would love to see our amazing sport and equestrians do for nature and to protect our British countryside.
Gosh, that's a huge question, isn't it?
Great
question.
Well,
basically keep doing what you do, but be aware. I've been an organic gardener for 40 years now, from the time when it was something that people with beards and grey socks and sandals did, you know. Sorry if anybody's here with a beard and grey socks and sandals. You know, it's always a mistake to say that. Anyway, it's being aware of the consequences of what you do. We all need to do that as gardeners. I haven't used a herbicide, a weed killer for 40 years, or an inorganic fertiliser. It's more difficult with animals, because you can't say don't use antibiotics. You know, it's much harder with animals than it is with humans, and also, but harder than it is with plants. But just be aware of the consequences of what you do. You know, what goes in must come out, and whatever you use with your animals, a lot of it now we find is residual within the soil, within the seas. And I think trying to adjust what you do to minimalise any deleterious effect you have on the environment makes you a better horseman and woman, you know, and it's as important in horsemanship, I think, as it is in gardening.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the things I'd love to see, and it's one of our biggest problems too, is particularly because of our operation with the Billy Stud, is the amount of manure and shaving, and that is a real problem to try and get rid of that. And yes, a lot of it's spread on the land, and that is something I would love more research done on. But also you sort of feel there must be ways to turn all that into something really
useful. Yeah, I think a lot of it is time related. There's such a haste about everything nowadays, but with, you know, anaerobic digesters and things like that, we've got so many more facilities now for responsibly enriching the soil, and I think we just need more of it and get better at it.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. One more question we're going to go for.
It's just a quick question, but Alan, I was just wondering what's your favourite flower or plant you like to grow or like to look at?
It depends entirely on the time of year. In February, I love snowdrops. In March, I love narcissi, daffodils. In April, I love tulips. In May, I like peonies. In June, I like roses, which carry on until July. In August, I like Japanese anemones. In September, I like the autumn asters. In October, I like the first of the autumn crocuses. In November, I like the cyclamen that are coming through. And in December, it's hellebores. Something for every month of the year. Okay, all right.
What an answer. Alan, thank you so much for joining us. Guys,
thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
Well, I had a great time recording that.
Well, we hope it was good.
I thought you were fabulous on the day, I have to say.
I hope I didn't say anything I shouldn't have said, and I've learnt quite a bit about
our guest,
and maybe, just a little clue, maybe my garden might look a bit better in a few months' time.
Absolutely. The legend that is Alan Titchmarsh. What a man. I was already a fan, and I know that irrespective of how this podcast would have gone, I'm going to be a bigger fan from meeting him.
If you've loved us talking horse or garden, make sure you join our community by subscribing so you never miss an episode.
And please do leave us a review, it really does help. And thank you again to Harry Hall One Club for being our sponsors today. Please do check out the pod description for the fun stuff they're offering.
Do tell us your own horse stories. Our email is info@talk-horse.com.
And join us next time because we've got so much more horse talk to share with you.
Bye.
Bye.